Rosalie Roberts clutched her phone to her ear as she sprinted down the busy Manhattan sidewalk, dodging pedestrians with practiced agility while trying to sound composed on the call. Yes, Miss Torres, I understand the original event planner quit with only 3 weeks until the gala. I assure you, I can handle this challenge. This is exactly the opportunity I've been waiting for. The truth was that Rosalie's fledgling event planning business was barely staying afloat. After leaving her corporate job 2 years ago to pursue her passion, she'd managed to build a portfolio of small events and weddings, but nothing of this magnitude. The Quantum Innovations annual charity gala was the social event of the year in New York's business world, and landing this contract could catapult her career to new heights. Mr. Quinn is very particular, Miss Roberts, the executive assistant continued sternly. The gala raises millions for children's education in underserved communities. It must be flawless. I won't disappoint you, Rosalie promised, arriving at the glass skyscraper that housed Quantum Innovations headquarters. She smoothed down her navy blue dress and took a deep breath before entering the lobby. 30 minutes and a thorough security check later, Rosalie sat in a sleek conference room, spreading her preliminary ideas across the polished table. The door opened, and she rose to her feet, expecting to greet Miss Torres. Instead, a tall man with striking blue eyes and dark hair streaked with silver at the temples entered the room. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that highlighted his athletic build. Even without introductions, Rosalie instantly recognized William Quinn, founder and CEO of Quantum Innovations, one of the most successful renewable energy companies in the world. Miss Roberts, he said, his voice deep and resonant as he extended his hand. I apologize for my tardiness. I hope Gloria hasn't been terrorizing you with impossible demands. Rosalie shook his hand, surprised by the warmth in his smile that contradicted his intimidating reputation. Not at all. Miss Torres has been very thorough in explaining your vision. Please call me Will, he said, taking a seat across from her. And I'd like to hear your vision for the gala. For a billionaire known for his exacting standards and fierce business acumen, William Quinn was surprisingly attentive as Rosalie walked him through her ideas. He asked thoughtful questions that revealed his genuine passion for the charitable cause behind the event. Your approach is refreshing, Will remarked as she finished her presentation. Previous planners focused too much on impressing the wealthy donors with extravagance rather than connecting them to the cause. Rosalie smiled, feeling a flutter of professional pride. People remember how you make them feel, not just what you show them. I want your guests to leave feeling personally invested in these children's futures. Will studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. You're hired, he said finally. Gloria will handle the paperwork. I'd like daily updates, if possible. Daily, Rosalie couldn't hide her surprise. Surely you have more important matters. Few things are more important than ensuring these children get the education they deserve, he interrupted gently. Besides, I find your perspective intriguing. Over the next week, Rosalie worked tirelessly, coordinating with vendors, designing the space, and crafting an experience that would open both hearts and checkbooks. True to his word, Will requested daily meetings, sometimes in person, sometimes via video call when his demanding schedule took him out of the city. During one such meeting in the Quantum Innovations test facility, Rosalie watched as Will passionately explained their latest solar technology to her. This panel generates 40% more energy while using recycled materials that would otherwise end up in landfills, he explained, his eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. We're installing these in schools across underserved communities. That's incredible, Rosalie said sincerely. Have you considered having some of the students who have benefited from these installations speak at the gala? Personal stories have powerful impact. Will's expression brightened. That's exactly what I've been trying to articulate. The previous planners always pushed for celebrity speakers, but you understand that authenticity matters more than status. As they walked through the facility, Rosalie noticed photographs of Will working alongside construction crews installing solar panels on school rooftops. You do the installations yourself? She asked, surprised. He shrugged, looking almost embarrassed. Once a month. It keeps me grounded, reminds me why we do what we do. My father was a construction worker who never had educational opportunities. He built things with his hands his whole life. Rosalie felt something shift in her perception of the billionaire. Beneath the polished exterior and business acumen was a man with genuine conviction and surprising humility. Later that evening, as Rosalie worked late in her small home office, her phone rang. Will's name flashed on the screen. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said when she answered. "Just finalizing the menu selections," she replied, surprised by his call outside their scheduled meetings. "I had a thought about the student speakers," he began, and soon they were deep in conversation that drifted from gala planning to their personal philosophies on education, opportunity, and responsibility. "I'm sorry," Will said after nearly an hour. "I didn't mean to keep you so late." "No apology needed," Rosalie assured him, realizing she'd enjoyed their conversation more than she cared to admit. It's refreshing to work with someone who cares so deeply about the impact of their work. The following day, Rosalie visited the gala venue, a historic building with soaring ceilings and dramatic architecture. As she stood making notes about lighting placement, she heard footsteps approaching. "I thought I might find you here," Will said, joining her in the empty space. "Gloria mentioned you were doing a site visit. Don't you have a company to run?" Rosalie teased, surprised by his appearance. Will smiled. "I delegated. Some things deserve personal attention." The way he looked at her made it unclear whether he meant the gala or her. They walked the space together, discussing flow and focal points. Will shared stories of previous galas, the successes and failures, with a self-deprecating humor that continually surprised her. "What about here?" Will suggested, standing in the center of the grand hall. "For the dance floor." "You dance?" Rosalie asked skeptically. "Is that so hard to believe?" He extended his hand. "I'll prove it." Without music in the empty hall, Will pulled her into a perfect waltz position. Rosalie laughed as he led her in several graceful turns. "Where did you learn to dance like this?" she asked, acutely aware of his hand on her waist. "My grandmother insisted," he explained. "Said no amount of money could compensate for poor manners or lack of social graces. Wise woman." "She would have liked you," Will said softly. The moment stretched between them, something unspoken passing in his gaze before he gently released her. "We should probably get back to work." Rosalie nodded, trying to ignore the lingering warmth where his hand had rested. The next 2 weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparations. Rosalie found herself looking forward to her meetings with Will, their professional relationship warming into something that felt increasingly like friendship. He valued her opinions, never pulling rank or reminding her of the power imbalance between them. 3 days before the gala, disaster struck when the catering company suddenly went bankrupt. "It's a complete disaster," Rosalie lamented during an emergency meeting with Will in his office. "Every decent caterer in the city is booked." Rather than showing anger, Will remained calm. "What options do we have?" Rosalie outlined several less than ideal alternatives, impressed by his level-headed response to what could be a gala-ruining crisis. "What about Antonio's?" Will suggested. Rosalie stared at him. "The Antonios, they don't cater events. People wait months for reservations at their restaurant. The owner's son went through our education program. Let me make a call." An hour later, not only had Antonio's agreed to cater the gala, but they were creating a custom menu highlighting cuisines from the neighborhoods where quantum innovations had built schools. As they left Antonio's after finalizing details, the skies opened in a sudden downpour. Will pulled Rosalie under the shelter of his umbrella, their shoulders touching as they navigated the rain-slicked sidewalks. "My car is just around the corner," Will said. "Let me give you a ride." His car turned out to be a sleek electric vehicle that Rosalie recognized as one of Quantum Innovation's prototype models. "You're using yourself as a test driver?" she asked as he held the door for her. "Best way to find the flaws," he replied with a grin. "Though I admit it's also just fun to drive." On the drive to her apartment, Rosalie found herself sharing stories from her childhood in a small town upstate, her struggles to establish her business, and her passion for creating meaningful experiences. "Why event planning?" Will asked as they sat parked outside her modest building, rain drumming on the roof. "I believe in the power of moments," she explained. "The right atmosphere, the right sequence of experiences, they can change how people think, how they feel, what they do afterward. It's like orchestrating small moments of transformation." Will studied her face with an intensity that made her heart race. "That's beautiful," he said finally, "and exactly why you were the right choice for this gala." The night of the event arrived, and Rosalie supervised final preparations in a state of controlled chaos. Everything was coming together beautifully, but her nerves remained on high alert. "You've created something extraordinary here," Will's voice came from behind her as she adjusted a display featuring photographs of students in their solar-powered classrooms. Rosalie turned to find him in a perfectly tailored tuxedo that made her momentarily lose her train of thought. "Thank you," she managed. "Though the night's success will be measured in donation dollars, not decorations. It will exceed all expectations," Will said with certainty, "just like you have." Before Rosalie could respond, Gloria appeared to whisk Will away to greet early arrivals, leaving her with a strange fluttering in her chest that had nothing to do with pre-event anxiety. The gala unfolded exactly as Rosalie had envisioned. The student speakers moved the audience to tears and opened wallets. The innovative menu delighted guests while reinforcing the mission. The atmosphere struck the perfect balance between elegance and purpose. As the evening progressed, Rosalie found herself watching Will. He moved through the crowd with natural charm but never seemed artificial. When speaking with donors, his passion for the cause shone through every word. When interacting with the student speakers, his respect and attention were genuine. "The donation total has already surpassed last year's by 40%, Gloria informed Rosalie as the evening wound down. "Mr. Quinn is extremely pleased." After the last guests departed, Rosalie walked through the space, making notes for the cleanup crew. The event had been a resounding success, yet she felt a curious melancholy. Her work with quantum innovations with Will was essentially complete. "There you are," Will's voice echoed in the nearly empty hall. He approached with 2 champagne flutes. "I've been looking everywhere for you." "We need to celebrate." "The night was a success," Rosalie agreed, accepting the glass. "Beyond all expectations, we raised nearly double last year's total." Will clinked his glass against hers. "To extraordinary results from extraordinary talent." "Thank you for taking a chance on me," Rosalie said. "This opportunity meant a lot." "About that," Will said, his expression turning serious. "I have a proposition for you." Rosalie's heart sank, assuming he was about to offer her a position planning Quantum's corporate events, a job that would certainly pay well, but would strip away the independence she'd worked so hard to establish. "I've established a new foundation," Will continued, "focused on bringing arts and cultural experiences to the same communities where we've built educational infrastructure. I need someone who understands the transformative power of experiences to run it." Rosalie stared at him. "You want me to run a foundation?" "But I'm an event planner, not a—" "You're someone who sees the potential in moments," Will interrupted. "Someone who understands how to create meaningful experiences that change perspectives. That's exactly what this foundation needs." Before she could respond, Will added, "It would be a partnership position, complete creative control with the full resources of Quantum behind you, and," he hesitated, "it would mean we could continue working together." Something in his tone made Rosalie look more closely at his expression. "Is that important to you, working together?" Will set down his glass. "More than I expected it to be," he admitted. "These past weeks, working with you, talking with you, I've found myself looking forward to our meetings more than anything else in my day." Rosalie's breath caught as Will took a step closer. "I know this might seem unprofessional," he said, his voice low, "and if you're not interested, we can forget this conversation entirely. The foundation offer stands regardless, but I'd like to see you outside of work contexts, Rosalie." I'd like to know if what I've been feeling has any chance of being mutual. Rosalie's mind raced. The attraction she'd been fighting, the connection that had grown between them, it hadn't been one-sided after all. What exactly have you been feeling? She asked, needing clarity before taking such a leap. That you're brilliant, that you see the world in ways that challenge and inspire me, that when you're not around, I find myself thinking of excuses to call you, Will smiled self-deprecatingly. I haven't felt this way in, possibly ever. Rosalie took a deep breath. Those daily update meetings weren't really necessary, were they? Will's eyes crinkled. Completely unnecessary. My executive team was quite confused about my sudden intense interest in centerpiece selection. Rosalie laughed, the tension breaking. I may have lingered over venue walkthroughs longer than strictly required. Is that a yes, to dinner perhaps, when we're no longer in a work relationship? Yes, Rosalie said simply, but I need to think about the foundation. That's a much bigger decision. Of course, Will agreed. Take all the time you need. 2 weeks later, Rosalie sat across from Will at a small Italian restaurant far from the upscale establishments where Manhattan's elite typically dined. Their third date had been as easy and engaging as their first two. I've made a decision about the foundation, Rosalie said as they shared tiramisu. Will set down his fork, his expression careful. I'm listening. I want to accept the position, she said, but with conditions. I want to maintain my event planning business alongside it, at least initially. And I want complete transparency about our personal relationship with the board and team. Will's face broke into a relieved smile. Absolutely, to both conditions. And one more thing, Rosalie added. I don't want special treatment because of us. If this foundation is going to succeed, it needs to be on the merit of the work. I wouldn't have it any other way, Will assured her. Your integrity is one of the many reasons I admire you. 6 months later, the Cultural Access Foundation had launched successful programs in 12 communities, bringing art installations, musical performances, and interactive cultural experiences to neighborhoods where such opportunities had been scarce. Rosalie's vision had translated into tangible impact, with measurable improvements in student engagement and community cohesion. Her relationship with Will had deepened alongside their professional accomplishments. Despite their different backgrounds, they shared core values and complementary perspectives. Will's wealth and status, which had initially intimidated Rosalie, proved largely irrelevant to their connection. In private moments, he was simply Will, thoughtful, occasionally stubborn, surprisingly funny and deeply caring. On a crisp autumn evening, Will invited Rosalie to the rooftop garden of Quantum's headquarters, a space usually reserved for environmental research. She found the entire area transformed with twinkling lights and flowers, reminiscent of the designs she'd created for their gala months earlier. What's all this? She asked, taking in the breathtaking view of the city skyline. I thought it was time I planned an event for you for a change, Will said, taking her hands in his, though I had some expert consultation from Gloria. I'm impressed, Rosalie laughed. What's the occasion? Will's expression turned serious. 6 months ago, you walked into a meeting room and completely changed the trajectory of my life. I had success, purpose, responsibility, but something was missing. You brought perspective, challenge, and a kind of joy I didn't know was possible. Rosalie felt tears pricking her eyes as Will dropped to one knee, producing a small box. Rosalie Roberts, I love you. Your passion, your integrity, your vision for what the world could be. He opened the box to reveal a stunning emerald ring surrounded by small diamonds. Would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife? Yes, Rosalie whispered, her heart overflowing. Yes, absolutely yes. As Will slipped the ring on her finger and rose to embrace her, Rosalie marveled at the journey that had brought them together. From nervous event planner to foundation director, from client to partner transformations, she could never have anticipated when she'd rushed into quantum innovations that first day. Later that night, as they celebrated with champagne under the stars, Will revealed one final surprise. There's something I never told you about how you got the gala planning job, he admitted, a mischievous glint in his eye. What do you mean? Rosalie asked, intrigued. When our previous planner quit, Gloria presented me with 3 potential replacements. Your portfolio wasn't the most extensive, but there was something about your philosophy statement about creating meaningful moments of connection that resonated with me. So you chose me based on my statement? Rosalie asked, touched by the revelation. Will smiled sheepishly. Not exactly. I may have done a bit more research. I attended a wedding you planned for one of our engineers 6 months earlier. I was impressed by how you created this incredible atmosphere where everyone felt connected to the couple's story. I saw how you worked behind the scenes, attentive, creative, solving problems without drawing attention. You were vetting me before I even applied. Rosalie laughed in disbelief. I was curious, Will admitted. When your name appeared on Gloria's list, it felt like serendipity. I had no idea where it would lead, but I knew I wanted to work with someone who understood that the most valuable experiences are the ones that change hearts and minds. Rosalie shook her head in amazement. So when I thought I was impressing a new client, I was already impressed, Will finished, though not nearly as impressed as I would become. He pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead. I couldn't have planned a better future if I'd tried. 1 year later, Rosalie and Will stood hand in hand at the 5th annual Quantum Innovations Charity Gala. Now husband and wife, they watched with pride as students from their programs demonstrated art installations powered by sustainable energy, a perfect marriage of their shared vision. Mrs. Quinn, Will whispered in her ear as they observed the successful event. Have I mentioned today how much I love you? Only 3 times, Rosalie teased, leaning into his embrace. But I never tire of hearing it. As they circulated among guests, many commented on how perfectly matched they seemed, the visionary entrepreneur and the experienced creator who had built something remarkable together. Later that night, after the last donor had departed and they stood alone in the quiet venue, Will pulled Rosalie into a spontaneous dance, just as he had during their venue walkthrough so many months ago. You remember the first time we danced here? He asked, spinning her gently. Of course, Rosalie smiled. I was trying very hard to maintain professional composure while my heart was doing somersaults. I nearly asked you out right then, Will admitted, but I didn't want to compromise your position or make you feel pressured. Always the gentleman, Rosalie teased. Though in retrospect, we could have saved ourselves weeks of professional pining. Will laughed, pulling her closer. I don't regret a moment of our journey. Every meeting, every late night call, every crisis solved together, they were all steps bringing us here. As they swayed together in the empty ballroom, Rosalie reflected on the unexpected path her life had taken. What had begun as a desperate grab for a career-making opportunity had blossomed into profound love and partnership. With Will, she had found not just personal happiness but a shared purpose larger than either of them could have achieved alone. What are you thinking about? Will asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. About planning and fate, Rosalie replied. About how sometimes the most beautiful futures are the ones we never saw coming. Will smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to her lips. To beautiful surprises then, he murmured, and to many more years of creating them together.